Hey leaders, I am so excited to share with you a practice/ritual that has really been one of my favorite tools in the past several years when it comes to managing my own energy as a business owner, as a leader. This is a practice and a ritual that I do going into major meetings or difficult conversations, and it helps to ground me. It really helps to anchor me in my body and help me form a connection with myself so that I can be fully present, not only to the conversation, but also be fully aware of what's happening within so that I can stay tuned in and tapped into my intuition, even as I experience a meeting. You might be wondering what that ritual is. It is ceremonial grade cacao. Let's get into it. Okay, so what is cacao? The way that it was first explained to me was that it's basically the highest, purest form of chocolate. And so immediately I was like, wow, I'm in. But as I experienced ceremonies myself and started to use cacao more and more in my daily life, I've realized that it's so much more than that. It is traditionally used in indigenous cultures in South and Central America, and it has some amazing healing properties that are both physical and spiritual. Unlike commercial chocolate or commercial cacao products, ceremonial grade cacao is minimally processed so that it preserves all of its good healing properties. It's made by fermenting and lightly toasting cacao beans rather than fully roasting them. This process retains the beans' natural nutrients, enzymes, and energetics. The highest quality ceremonial grade cacao is made without pesticides and fertilizers, and it doesn't include any additives like added sugar, milk or dairy products, or preservatives that might be found in more conventional chocolate products. It's rich in antioxidants, magnesium, iron, and other minerals, including theobromine, which is a natural stimulant that's going to give your body a natural boost of energy without the crash that you might get from caffeine, making cacao a phenomenal drink to have in the afternoon instead of turning to that second or even third cup of coffee in the afternoon. Traditionally, it's been used for both spiritual and medicinal properties. It's believed to be a heart opener and to stimulate connection both within oneself and within a collective. There are various ways to use cacao in a ritual or a ceremony setting, but traditionally what that looks like is sacredly preparing the cacao or intentionally preparing it, including the ingredients that you are most needing for that moment in your life or for where your body might be. Things like turmeric to reduce inflammation, or some pink Himalayan salt to add even more mineral goodness into your cacao. Others like to add vanilla extract or some local honey to sweeten it a bit because it can be a little bit bitter on its own. I personally love to add a dash of cinnamon or a little bit of cayenne pepper to give it a little bit more dynamism. Once the cacao is prepared, there's usually an intention setting moment where you are either speaking your intention into the cup or using the breath to say the intention in your mind's eye as you breathe in, and then blowing your intention into the cup of cacao itself, infusing the cacao with your intention so that when you take that first sip and you continue to drink the cacao, the idea is that the intention travels all through the body and is seeped in at the deepest of levels in your system. From there, sometimes there is some guided meditation or live music with guided visualization as part of this. There might even be dance as well to help move some of the emotions that can come up in a cacao ceremony, because again, it is a heart opener. And sometimes when we're in ceremony with cacao, whether that's a ceremony with ourselves or a ceremony in a group, some emotions can come up that we're ready to release. And so we want to have the tools available to us to deal with those emotions and let them through us. Before we get into the actual recipe and how to use cacao in a ceremony setting, within your daily life, within running your business, let's dive into some of the science behind cacao's health benefits as well. So good. It can improve heart health, enhance mood, and enhance mental focus. The high level of antioxidants in cacao helps to combat free radicals, which helps to reduce oxidative stress and inflammation in the body. Pretty amazing tool when it comes to combating burnout or proactively preventing burnout. Stress can create a ton of inflammation in the body, and we know that inflammation is really not good for just about any system in the body. It also has a lot of heart healthy fats in it as well. It's an incredible antioxidant. And as I mentioned, it has some amazing minerals such as magnesium and iron. So if we think about what that does to support the body, it can really improve cognitive function, which is why I see it as a tool to use within our leadership, within the impact that we're wanting to have in the world. If we can think more clearly, coherently, and from a place of connection within, we can actually have greater impact in the world and in how we embody our purpose. So I personally use cacao to support me in that. I am also a cycle syncer, as in I sync my dietary, exercise, and work habits with the 4 distinct phases of the menstrual cycle. I've found that having cacao, especially in my menstrual phase, leading into it, during it, and a little bit afterwards, I am helping my body to replenish any lost iron that might come from menstruation. Not to mention, in that pre-menstruation phase, if I am feeling a bit moody or my stress is naturally elevated, because by the way, our body produces more cortisol in the couple weeks before our period as we prepare to shed our uterine lining and have a period. Cortisol naturally increases, so our stress is a little bit naturally up. Cacao is a supportive tool for naturally reducing stress. And so I find that for both PMS as well as the loss of some key minerals that come with menstruation, cacao really helps to boost me back up and replenish anything that I might be in a deficit in as part of my menstrual cycle. It's funny because we've probably all heard that women crave chocolate before their periods. Well, guess what? This is partly why. However, more conventional industrial made chocolate has so much else in it, so much added sugar. That certainly is not going to stabilize our moods. In fact, that is going to destabilize our moods. So cacao is such a nice alternative to some of those natural chocolate cravings that we might have, but not have really understood why we're having those cravings. I do want to throw in a little disclaimer for anyone who does have heart issues or a history of heart-related diseases when taking cacao, or really anyone who is a bit more sensitive to stimulants, because it is going to increase your heart rate a bit. You are going to feel a bit activated, an increase in your energy. And if you have a history of cardiovascular issues, this might not be great. For anyone with cardiovascular disease or high blood pressure, this might not be the plant medicine for you. It is absolutely recommended to talk to a medical professional or primary care physician before choosing to take cacao, either on your own or in a group setting. Let's get into the spiritual side of this a little bit, because cacao has this incredible way of doing 2 things simultaneously. Yes, it stimulates you and boosts your energy a bit, increases your awareness and your sentience in your own body as your heart begins to open and activate. At the same time, it's incredibly relaxing. And so we can actually access enhanced meditation and stillness when we are using the ritual of cacao, because the ritual itself helps to slow us down. But also the act of drinking this amazing, rich, warm beverage drops us in to our bodies and drops us into a bit of a meditative, more aware state. So again, slowness mixed with stimulation, kind of an interesting combination, right? I can tell you from the cacao ceremonies that I've participated in, this combination has been amazing. Or intentional visualization, whether I am visualizing my own healing journey or visualizing a business idea, I'm able to stay both calm and in a state of non-stress while also being fully present, activated, and stimulated. Because of some of the stress reducing benefits of cacao, I've really noticed a difference in my mental health when I regularly have it. Now, some of you might be wondering, what is a cacao ceremony in a group? What does that really look like? And so I'll just paint the picture for you and share my experience with that so far for any of those who might be interested in partaking in a cacao ceremony in your area. There are actually a lot of these happening across the US, in cities, in rural communities. I am amazed at the widespread use of cacao in the US at least. My first experience ever using cacao in a group ceremony space was in Colorado in a beautiful venue called the Star House. It was on a new moon, I believe, and there were about 70 people. It was a pretty large group in this circular shaped building, or this round shaped building that is made of all kinds of sacred geometry. It's up on a mountain just outside of Boulder, Colorado. Absolutely stunning as far as a venue goes. And immediately when you get out of your car and put your feet on the ground, you just feel at peace and feel calm. And you walk up to the Star House, which kind of sits on the hill as this beacon, and you enter the space. And it's beautifully curated to be a ceremony space. There were comfortable mats and pillows and eye coverings all over for you to choose from. We were invited to pick a spot, get comfortable. There was some live music happening gently as we entered the space. And then the two facilitators and their assistants started to welcome us to the space and prepare the cacao in front of us so that we were a part of it. They had a pretty big pot of cacao that they were making. I've seen some groups use either a big pot or even a crock pot to prepare their cacao for a large group like this. They typically have some things you can add nearby. I mentioned turmeric, pink Himalayan salt, cayenne pepper, cinnamon, vanilla, honey. There's a variety of things that you can put in cacao to customize it to your flavor profile and make it really pleasant on the way down. Although I will say it's not like it's bad without any of these things. I actually think it's quite good, but some people do find it quite bitter. I've also seen some people add nut butters or tahini to give it a bit of a richer, thicker taste, as well as essential oils or other spices to add to the overall profile of minerals or nutrients or healing properties that you're wanting to have in your cup. Once the facilitators shared what we could expect and the cacao itself was made, they then started to one by one pour cacao in a cup, and we would pass it around until everyone, all 70 people, had a cup of cacao and were ready to sit intentionally, breathe their intention into the cup, and get ready for, I believe it was a 2-hour guided meditation journey. These facilitators in particular were very talented musicians and singers. And so there was a lot of live drumming and live singing after the initial guided visualization that got us into a meditative state and got us feeling really comfortable in the space. From there, my experience ended up being really visual. I mentioned this interesting blend of calm, but also activated, right? Heart activated. And I remember lying there on my mat, so aware of the other hearts in the room, just feeling this vibrancy or this frequency increase in the space. And I'm a really visual person anyway when I meditate, but these visuals were just on a different level. I was seeing native people walk towards the Star House from the surrounding woods and enter the space with us. I was seeing various animals like a hawk, a fox. After we all had this journey together, we in circle had the opportunity to share what our experience was and to share some of our biggest insights. And it turned out that many of us who had these more visual experiences had seen a lot of the same thing and had seen certainly the same animals come to join us. And I just remember thinking, wow, this is what it's like to really tap into the collective consciousness of a group and to have a shared collective experience in ceremony or ritual together. After participating in several cacao ceremonies at the Star House, I continued to find ceremony wherever I could. Cut to a few years later, and I find myself in a cacao ceremony in Ireland, hosted by some incredible women at a wild women's retreat. The cacao ceremony was held with the utmost care, some of the best cacao that I've had. You could feel how infused with intentionality and love it was. That experience in particular, because it was all women, was so unique. There was this call to really release the more primal parts of our sacred anger, of our repressed feminine wound. It was so powerful. Overall, the experiences that I had inside of a cacao ceremony were incredible, really accelerating as far as my inner journey and my healing journey. And if you've spent any time with me at all, you know that I really believe that the inner healing journey is deeply connected to the entrepreneurial journey, that we can't separate these things. Doing the inner work is part of what unlocks the outer work of growing our business. These things are so intrinsically linked. The work that we do internally impacts the success that we have externally. And for me, working with cacao as a tool, as a medicine to help me do some of that deep inner investigation of my own patterns, shadows, blocks, opening my heart to help me transcend the fear that was holding me back, to help me be more connected, more confident, more loving, and to find the fellow humans who were also operating in this way. Cacao has served me in so many ways. One thing that I absolutely love about the gentleness of cacao as a plant medicine is that you still get the profound experience of knowing yourself, having breakthrough insights, releasing a big block that was getting in the way without some of the more intense experiences that a more psychoactive or psychedelic plant medicine might cause. I've found for myself that sometimes those more intense experiences are beautiful and necessary. However, for me, I am a bit of a gentle creature. And so I really enjoy the subtlety of regular cacao as part of my ritual, as part of the ceremony that is my day or my week or my month. I find that bit by bit, I'm able to integrate my learnings, integrate my connection through my business, through my daily life and interactions with people that I love. It's so approachable as a plant medicine, not to mention it is delicious. So it feels like a treat in a way in the afternoon. Now, I do want to share my favorite recipe with you and walk you through exactly how I made this cup of cacao so that you yourself can do this at home. In the notes below, I am including a link to the cacao source that I use so that you too can make sure that you're sourcing ethical and sustainably sourced cacao for your experience. Let's get into the recipe and how to actually make this. I'm going to walk you through exactly how I make my favorite recipe of cacao. Here are all the ingredients that I love to put in my recipe, which is included in the description below. First, you're going to take your brick of cacao. I get mine from Cacao Source, ensuring that it's ethically sourced and that it's coming from a sustainable farm. You can see how beautiful the coloration is, pure chocolate with nothing added. Go ahead and chop it into fine pieces. You're going to want to chop about 25 to 32 grams. It's okay if it's a little chunky for now. That's going to melt once you put it in water and start to heat it. Here's the packaging for the brand that I like. There's a link in the description below. Next, go ahead and fill your mug about halfway with filtered water and place it into your pan. Turn the heat to low to medium. It's important that the cacao doesn't boil or it starts to lose some of its properties. Go ahead and add the cacao into the pan and give it a stir. While the water heats, it's still going to look a little bit chunky, and again, that's okay. Go ahead and add your favorite ingredients for your unique recipe, suggestions in the description below. Give it a stir. And when you notice that the cacao starts to steam, it's time to put in your favorite milk. This can be almond, oat, dairy, really your choice. And you're going to put about a quarter cup to a half cup of your favorite milk into the cacao, and this prevents it from boiling. Give it a nice stir. Turn your heat down to low so that you don't boil. And now it's time to set your intention in your cup. I like to do a bit of Reiki on the cup of cacao before I drink it. I've been doing Reiki since I was 18, and I'm including a link to a self-paced online self-Reiki course that I teach. I find it to be an incredible practice for managing my energy and my stress load. But even if you don't know Reiki, you can still take a couple breaths here and send your intention into your cacao. You'll notice that it has started to melt and it's looking like it's an amazing consistency. To make it even smoother, if you have a frother, you can go ahead and use that. It's going to make it really consistent and smooth. Finally, I like to add about a tablespoon of local honey. I add this last so that it doesn't ruin the natural properties of honey. And then I pour my cacao over the honey, and there's my cup of cacao. Now I'm ready to bring my cup with me into my space, into my meeting, set some further intentions, and mindfully enjoy my first sip. Now that you know how to make cacao, I want to talk a little bit about ways to bring it into your daily life. My favorite ways to use the healing medicine of cacao within the context of our modern Western work culture or society comes down to three ways. One, I love to use it at the start of meetings, like I mentioned. And what this really looks like in practice is that I do not schedule back to back meetings, at least if I can avoid it. It's not like that never happens, but I really, really try not to schedule back to back meetings so that I can take that pause, I can take that breath. And particularly for my afternoon meetings, I need about 15 to 20 minutes to go through my process of making the cacao, doing some Reiki on it. I've been a Reiki master since I was 18 and have worked with hundreds of clients over the years to do energy work on them and their businesses, actually. And so I infuse every cacao cup with a bit of Reiki energy to really help activate some of its more spiritual properties. Once I make the cacao, I like to use that moment of breathing an intention into the cup to set the intention for the meeting that I'm about to have or the group gathering that I'm about to facilitate or guide, because I do host a lot of meetings, I facilitate a lot of courses. So this is a really beautiful way for me to not only center, but sort of set the space, set the container for the meeting or the course that's about to take place. I always enjoy my first couple of sips in solitude before the meeting begins. And then throughout the experience, I sip on my cup of cacao and it continues to do its work through me as I guide or facilitate whatever it is that I'm offering. The second way that I love to use cacao in my day to day is as a break, as a conscious break in my workday. In moments when I have lived in places where I had direct access to nature, I would often make a cup of cacao to go and I would bring it with me on a walk out in nature. I would make sure that I was breathing deeply in to get some fresh air. Sometimes I would sit underneath a tree to enjoy that first sip or breathe the intention that I had for my walk or the rest of my day, whatever it might be. And this was a really beautiful way to make sure that I was getting away from my computer, doing something for my body, checking back in with myself and creating some spaciousness in my day before just jumping into the next task. A cacao ritual, a great way to break up the workday and even slow down time a bit so that things don't feel as fast paced or as stressful. And again, the actual properties of cacao are going to support you with reducing stress anyway. So you get benefits from a couple different angles there. The third way that I absolutely love to use cacao in a modern work context is to enjoy it with someone that I'm meeting with. This can happen either virtually or in person. If in person, I will typically make the batch of cacao, offer it to the other person, go through the intention setting process at the start of our meeting, and then enjoy sipping on it throughout the meeting. And I find that the depth of connection, the quality of ideation, and really the impact of what comes out of that meeting tends to be far more aligned across the people and the individuals involved. You can also enjoy cacao with someone else on Zoom if they also enjoy cacao and have a supply of it. And what I'll typically do there is before the meeting, I will share that I'm going to be bringing some cacao to the meeting. And if they want to make some too, would they like to start with a few breaths and setting an intention and then enjoying our first sip together, or however you want to design this? I've found that to be a really beautiful practice to build deeper connection, even across a virtual meeting context. Those are the three top ways that I love to use cacao in this modern work context. And if you've stuck with me through to this long in the video, thank you for being here. I want to close with an invitation to zoom out to look at what it is we're really doing when we invite more ritual and ceremony into our daily practice of running our business or doing our work. This framing comes from the executive education course that we run at Harvard University for sustainability professionals, but it really applies to any business owner or anyone wanting to do work more consciously. I want to zoom out to look at how culture is created generally, but especially inside of our companies and organizations. It's created through the language we use, it's created through our behaviors, our reactions, but it is especially created through the rituals and ceremonies that we engage in. And we don't typically think of business as having rituals or ceremonies, but they do. These rituals indoctrinate us into a culture that then becomes the norm. It sets the stage. It creates the status quo for our culture. I'll give you an example that we use inside of our course. Let's take the context of an important board meeting. Maybe you dress in business professional attire. You enter a meeting room that is set up in a certain way and has a certain aesthetic. You find a seat where an agenda on the table, neatly placed, greets you. And then whoever's running the meeting might quickly run you through the agenda, take attendance, and then the meeting begins. And there's a certain set of cultural practices or norms around how ideas are going to be shared, how meeting minutes are going to be taken. If you've ever been in a board meeting, there's that weird sort of ritual where you make a motion to make a change and then that motion is accepted, right? There's a whole protocol in the ritual or the ceremony of having a board meeting. And again, we don't think of it as a ritual, but it creates the culture of business. Especially lately, there's been a lot of questioning of the status quo. Is the way we've been doing business, is the way that we've been building work culture healthy, or is it kind of toxic? Does it keep us separate in our work life non-balances? Does it force us to leave our authentic or vulnerable self at home? Does it overprivilege the viewpoints of certain types of people or certain positions in a hierarchy? These are all really important questions to be asking at this moment in our collective journey. And the point that I want to make here and end with is that ritual and ceremony is effectively a social technology for healing and evolving culture. When we introduce a new ritual, like opening a meeting with meditation or doing a walking meeting in nature instead of a sit down meeting in a sterile boardroom, or engaging in a solo ritual of making cacao, taking a break, checking in with yourself, and then showing up more presently and more connected for your next meeting, you are literally changing and creating a new culture through these rituals. So I want to invite you to think about all of the practices and rituals that you are perhaps unconsciously engaging in right now in your organization, in how you show up as a founder, in how you show up as a business owner, that might be impacting the culture that you create, not only for others, but also the inner culture that you create for yourself. What practices or rituals might support you to create the culture that you want to operate in, whether that's cacao or something else? That is the question that I want to leave you with today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy this delicious recipe for cacao that I'm leaving in the notes. Please let me know how it goes and what your experience is if you decide to use this in some of the same ways that I do at the start of meetings with others and to take conscious breaks in work. Thanks so much for tuning in. If you're new here, I'm Nicole Bellisle. I'm an executive educator at Harvard University and the founder of Living Leaders, where we focus on conscious, regenerative leadership practices that help us scale impact without burning out. If that sounds like something you're interested in, I want to invite you to like this video, subscribe, and hop on our newsletter because we are pushing out some amazing practice-based, application-based content on a bi-weekly basis. And we would love to have you in our community. Until next time.